Hello and welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is going to be a 4v4 random team game on Battlegrounds, and I'm going to be playing Elf here. I get an edge spawn, and I sort of try to convince my allies that we should rush the enemy's human player with pandas. Now they only, if I remember correctly on the load screen, there was like one human player and a random player, and then some other whatever the other races were, orc and elf, I think. I'm not sure, but I knew for sure there was going to be a human. So if there's only one human, this is a little bit risky because there's always a chance this human could get sort of mass towers or an early arcane tower, which is somewhat of a decent defense against this strategy. If their base is sort of built correctly, but I scout this guy's base. I didn't see a tower. His base looks fairly open, at least so far. So now I've got to convince the allies if I'm going to do it. I really need at least one of the allies to get a panda. Two pandas generally can do a decent amount of damage, though preferably three is going to be like a slam dunk. Killing, assuming the player's decent, is going to be pretty much guaranteed killing most of their workers in many situations. And if it's four, sort of, it's even better, though it also sort of really also is going to have all the downsides of a panda. If everybody picks a panda, the downsides are going to be there as well. Sort of a slow hero melee attack, but his abilities and stats are pretty decent, so he's a pretty solid hero at any rate in the early and mid game for sure. Later in the game, magic immune units are going to be potentially a problem if everybody's focusing on AoE magical abilities. But anyway, I do convince three players actually to get pandas here, purple, and teal gets his on the other side for some silly reason. But regardless, we're going to go in here, and he's got an Archmage, so the Mountain King could sort of, Storm Bolt and slow us down a little bit. The Archmage, of course, probably has water elementals. He's not reacting very quickly right now. Hasn't even used water elemental or anything, so two Breath of Fires go off, and we continue to run. Purple sort of gets himself trapped, but it's not too big of a problem. I mean, even if he loses his hero, he is luring like all their workers into a small area, so they're going to be very easily destroyed. You see two more Breath of Fires going, and we kill just a whole chunk of them, and that purple panda is still there. He used all of his mana. He's going to go ahead and TP out. He's got Moonwell, so I guess it's not too bad. I probably would have just let my hero die. Really, the only races that maybe I wouldn't do that with would be Orc and Elf, because of Moonwells, Healing Salves, and Clarity Potions. Those two races can really get their hero back fairly quickly if they've got, the Voodoo Lounge or the Moonwells. But at any rate, he does TP out there, so he denies them the experience. Teal is going to run away, and I make some comment about where I got the strategy from. So just look there. There's only two workers left at green, and we didn't even use any units yet. Now I've got a Huntress that comes up here, and I can probably, if I really wanted to, I could probably kill those workers, but Red's coming in here with his grunts. And now look, even Green's hero has taken, quite a bit of damage. So, so yeah, Green is pretty much out of the game here. Red's running around chasing Teal with his Tauren. He just leaves the game. Probably a wise decision. Is very... Oh, and Purple does a pretty smooth maneuver getting the Staff of Teleportation from a shop. And he teleports in, so he doesn't have to run across the map, saving himself a lot of time, and for sure finishing the rest of these workers. So yeah, I don't remember if I ran back to my base. It didn't look like I did there with the hero. But yeah, you look at here, we got, pretty much all these kills. I got 7 unit kills, Orange got 3, and then Teal got 9. So, that was just really a team effort there. So yeah, you really, with a human base that's wide open, you can see how powerful this strategy is. There's not really much they can do. They can call to arms. If they're really if their micro is like really good, they can split the workers up so they don't, um, maybe they don't take the full, 8 units getting hit with breath of fire every shot. If they have a tower up beforehand, it makes it a lot easier. But again, that's so quick. You look, this game was only not even 5 minutes long. A lot of times in most build orders, you're not going to get an arcane tower that early in the build. Um, with human, you just generally don't do it. But I mean, you could. It would certainly save you a lot of headaches if you could get that up early. But again, you just think how early you have to start that tower to really get it up before 3 tavern heroes can get there. Depending on where the tavern is, it could be pretty close to your base. It was pretty much in the middle of the map, so it wasn't like right next to that player's base. But again, you see how short this game was and how quickly we were able to get to his base. Now, the strategy does depend on your at least one other ally getting a panda. Preferably, like I said, at least 2 other allies getting a panda, and going immediately with you. And it also, assuming you actually do a lot of damage like that, you give yourself a pretty big cushion in terms of margin of error. If you kill like all but 2 of their workers, or even more, all their workers, um, then some of your players don't have to be the most amazing, as long as they can just sort of play better than a player that doesn't have an economy. You should be in good shape. Now, sure, you can still have players that are just so bad that it's still a struggle to win, especially if some of the other enemies are really strong players. But again, it's just such an easy. What did it really cost us? It cost us a lot of mana. We had to go for a tavern hero. But the Panda, he's a pretty solid hero. His ultimate is amazing, assuming you ever get that far. Once he gets to level 5, he's good against pretty much anything that's not magic immune. He's really a pretty good hero against. And that includes, buildings, clumped together towers, things like that, tanks, flying machines, any of those type of strategies, mass gargoyles, mass hippogriff riders, wind riders to some degree. If you see bat riders or raiders, these types of armies, casters even, they're going to be fairly vulnerable to his skills, his AOE damage and everything. So it's not necessarily that, in my opinion, it's not necessarily that big of a cost to picking the Panda. Now, his movement speed is fairly slow, but if you really want to sort of buff that, you can get boots of speed. And also, when he gets breath of fire, or dragon, not dragon, drunken haze, he has the ability to slow things down fairly significantly in terms of movement speed, especially level 2 and 3 drunken haze if you get that far. So, and then once you get the ultimate, when you're using the ultimate, he turns into 3 smaller pandas, which I know one has Windwalk, and I sort of feel like they're a little bit quicker, but that might just be that might not be quite the case. But again, like I say, his ultimate is one of the best ones in the game. Drunken Haze, Breath of Fire, both cost only 70 mana, so it's fairly inexpensive. I mean, 100 if you take them together, 140 mana. But it's it's giving them a pretty strong debuff as well as a ton of damage. The synergy, if you hit the Drunken Haze units with the Breath of Fire, is going to be giving you a pretty big damage boost there. So so yeah, that's what I would say about the Panda, the strategy. It's most effective really against human in general. I mean, all you really need for the human base is to be open enough to get your hero around their workers, and maybe not an arcane tower up right when you run in. If it's upgrading when you run in, that's not necessarily the end of the world, because you can just breath of fire towards the tower and also hitting their workers, and you're going to generally like 2 arcane or 2 breath of fires, and then a couple of attacks, I think can pretty much take it down generally pretty easily. If they try to repair it, the Breath of Fires will probably just kill the workers. And then if it gets up, it's like, okay, you get off some shots, and then maybe we destroy it. That's a pretty big cost for that tower just to go down for only a handful of shots. And if you didn't save your workers, was it really worth it? Possibly not. So, but yeah, that's a pretty fun strategy, and I really like to, when you can convince your allies to do it, when it's done well against a player that, like I say, has a base that's sort of open for it. It's really, really seemingly pretty cheesy and sort of an abusive type strategy. I mean, if you had Stormbolt and he could even if you get Stormbolt and Surround, you've got a strength hero that can take a lot of damage, and you're just lining up the workers for Breath of Fire. Like sort of you saw that happen with I think it was Purple's hero. He ran himself into a corner, and yeah, sure, eventually he had to town portal, but by the time he town portaled, all the workers were gone. He got himself into a sort of a good little cubby hole, so the full force of all the militia couldn't quite get to him, but so that was, really, really worked out well. So, yeah, a pretty dangerous strategy, and this strategy actually, I want to say it used to be a thing in, I can't remember if it was 3v. I didn't really play a lot of 4v4 arranged teams, so it was probably 3v3 arranged team games where this was like sort of a strategy. 3 players would get a panda, and then they would do some kind of maybe mass huntresses and having sort of feeding an undead player to get up to frostworms or gargoyles or something. Could have been a thing, or just really whatever strategy behind it you wanted. Grunts, huntresses, and fiends. That was sort of a pretty common unit mix to get in 3s. That's going to give you a lot of high hit point units, high hit point heroes, and sort of crowd control heroes. So yeah, that's and again, like I say, it's dangerous in that you show up that soon, and the enemy generally doesn't have that many units to sort of fend off 3 pandas, and if they do, they're probably like archers or footmen. So even those type of units, ghouls, maybe it could be fairly vulnerable. But the other point is, if you can't stop the heroes from getting to the workers, they're like I say, there's not a lot you can do, especially for human. And undead to some degree. Elf can hide their workers. They can put it's pretty easy to spread elf wisps out, though they're also much lower hit point values for the wisp. And like I said, the orcs can send the peons to the burrows. The acolytes are going to be vulnerable, but there's only 5 acolytes, so killing 5 acolytes is a big deal. But it's not the same as killing 12 peasants. Obviously that's going to be much bigger cost. That's going to be their lumber income as well. Whereas undead has ghouls, which have not amazing hit point values, but they can sort of more easily spread the ghouls out or whatever, and heal them if they need to generally. So, but yeah, hopefully you sort of enjoyed this audio replay and the strategy. It's a pretty simple, but in my opinion, a very effective strategy. Assuming you can convince allies to go the panda, and that they will focus the workers. I mean, if you go panda and you're not casting Breath of Fire in the correct areas, maybe you're going for footmen and the archmage instead of the workers. You're really defeating the purpose. I mean, sure, if you can get 1 or 2 footman kills, that seems good. But again, like I say, if you can get something like 10, 12 peasant kills, even 8 or 9 peasant kills, that's going to be better than 2 footmen. So, 2 footmen is going to be about 270 gold. So, what's that, somewhere around, 4 or 5 peasants worth. So, assuming you could get 10 or 12, obviously that's much lower. Even, like I say, even if you get 8. The other point of it is not just the base cost of the peasants versus the footmen, but you lose all that mining time, 5 to 7 to however many peasants you kill, they're not going to be getting either lumber or gold. And if you kill that many, sort of both is going to be impacted. Uh, so yeah, that's really the idea behind it. Again, as far as later in the game, if it lasts that long, you can sort of do what Purple did: get a staff, sneak into a base, sneak back into that human base is probably going to be an easy target generally. You can get invisibility potions, cast invisibility from adept sorceresses. You can sneak in if somebody else gets like a blade master. That generally works really well too, to sort of finish off the stragglers, get in and out, get some scouting in later. And so yeah, that's one of my sort of one of my favorite like cheesy strategies to do in big team games. So this is going to be the end though. ScryMind signing out.